Welcome to the Hindu Daily. Okay, let's unpack this incredible intersection of history, neglect, and massive tourism potential right out of the gate. Today we are kicking off with historian William Dalrymple's compelling argument, urging the Maharashtra government to really capitalize on the forgotten diversity around one of India's most important heritage sites, the Ellora Caves.
It's such a crucial call to action, because Ellora is already this globally recognized landmark.
Of course.
It proudly holds the title of India's first UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it's famous for that sprawling complex carved out over, 700 years? And it beautifully shows the coexistence of three major religious traditions: Hindu, Buddhist, and Jain.
And the fact that sticks in everyone's mind, the monumental achievement of that site is, of course, the Kailasa Temple.
Right.
That massive, breathtaking, chariot-shaped monument dedicated to Shiva.
Yeah.
It is the single largest monolithic rock excavation anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
It's a testament to ancient skill and ambition. But Dalrymple's argument suggests that by focusing solely on these spectacular carvings, we are missing a much broader, richer historical narrative.
Exactly. We focus on the caves themselves, but he highlights Kultabad, which sits right on top of the hill. It's just about a 10-minute walk from the main cave area.
10-minute walk.
Yeah, and this area is suffering from what he terms utter neglect. I mean, when you think of a global heritage site, you expect basic infrastructure walkways, proper signboards, maintenance.
Sure, the bare minimum.
And these are just conspicuously absent at Kultabad.
So what makes Kultabad so important, historically speaking? Why should we care about this specific hilltop area?
Well, what's truly fascinating is that the entire campus, including Kultabad, has this unbroken history of veneration that predates the main Hindu, Buddhist, and Jain cave traditions.
Wow, okay.
Dalrymple notes evidence of ancient Naga veneration serpent worship that ties it back to even deeper localized roots. And on top of that, Kultabad became a major center for Sufi traditions, and these traditions are as old as Islam's presence in India itself.
So you get this continuous cultural and spiritual timeline spanning millennia.
You do. By neglecting the hilltop, we're essentially, chopping the first and last chapters out of the history book.
That's a powerful analogy. If we look at the specific monuments he identifies as being shamefully neglected, what are the highlights that could transform the tourism appeal if they were properly restored?
He points to three critical sites within that neglected zone. First, and perhaps most strikingly, is the tomb of Malik Ambar.
Right.
Ammar was the Abyssinian military genius who established the city of Aurangabad and was a formidable force against the Mughals. His tomb, a site of immense political and historical significance, is currently locked up and often surrounded by rubbish.
Unbelievable.
Dalrymple insists this needs immediate attention. It should be cleaned, preserved, and opened as a key tourist destination.
And that's just local history. The second and third points connect this spot to the very core of Marathi history and then stretch out globally.
Exactly. The second neglected monument is the tomb of the first Peshwa, also situated nearby. This connects the site directly to the Maratha Empire's roots, adding another layer of national historical significance that is currently, unmarked and unappreciated.
And the third neglected site is the one with the real international pull, I'd imagine.
Oh, absolutely. It's the empty tomb of the last Ottoman caliph. This is a genuinely unique piece of global history embedded in rural Maharashtra.
How did that end up there?
The tomb was commissioned by his daughter, who was married to the son of the Nizam of Hyderabad, but fate intervened. The caliph died in exile in Paris during the Nazi occupation and was never buried in the Kultabad tomb.
So it's an empty tomb.
It's an empty tomb. And Dalrymple notes that this connection alone could create a huge tourism draw, specifically from Turkey, where the memory of the Ottoman Caliphate still holds immense cultural and historical weight.
So the vision is not just about cleaning up a few old monuments, but a massive strategic tourism realignment.
It's a total realignment. The argument is that by linking the four crucial sites, Ajanta, Ellora, Daulatabad, and Kultabad Maharashtra can create a golden quadrangle.
A golden quadrangle. I like that.
It would offer an incredibly diverse, deep, and multi-layered historical experience that would attract an exponentially larger base of international high-value tourists. It shifts the site from merely being the caves to being a comprehensive historical landscape.
That makes perfect sense. By restoring the context, you restore the value. We're moving now to conservation, and specifically looking at the ongoing drama and legal battles around the proposed Goa Tiger Reserve. This is a classic case of state politics clashing with central ecological mandates.
That's right. And the core conflict landed right at the highest level, resulting in the Supreme Court's Central Empowered Committee, the CEC, stepping in. They formally recommended that the Goa government proceed with establishing the tiger reserve, but critically, in a phased manner.
And this action was a direct result of the judiciary forcing the issue, right? Stemming from a July 2023 Bombay High Court order.
Yes, exactly. That High Court order had mandated the state to notify 5 specific protected areas, including Maide and others, as a tiger reserve within just 3 months. And this entire legal process was prompted by a petition filed after the heartbreaking, alleged poisoning deaths of a tigress and her 3 cubs back in 2020.
Which made the need for enhanced protection painfully clear.
Painfully clear.
The Goa government's response to this judicial pressure has been, well, it's been characterized by strong resistance and some highly questionable statistical maneuvering.
It was startling. Initially, the state government filed a special leave petition opposing the reserve, claiming that notifying it would affect nearly 1 lakh people, 100,000 individuals.
100,000.
Yes. But then they later had to correct this assertion in their own affidavit, conceding the actual number was much, much smaller. Only about 5,000 to 6,000 individuals across 33 villages.
That's a massive discrepancy.
It speaks volumes about the political resistance at play.
And beyond the numbers, they also deployed a specific ecological argument that the tigers were merely transient, just passing through.
And this is where the spectacular irony emerges.
Right.
It's the highest form of political contradiction. Just a few years earlier, in 2018, the same Goa government had submitted evidence to the Matai Water Disputes Tribunal. And what did they argue then?
The opposite.
The exact opposite. They argued that tigers were a resident population and that the forests formed a critical, contiguous corridor connecting their sanctuaries directly to Karnataka's Kali Tiger Reserve. Their own prior, officially submitted documentation completely undermines their current claim.
So the CEC had to find a way to honor the ecological necessity while also managing the local community resistance, which led to this phased strategy. How does that work?
The CEC's proposal is really pragmatic and sensitive. It focuses on identifying areas of maximum tiger presence that are least inhabited. So Phase 1 proposes defining the core zone as those areas directly contiguous to the Kali Tiger Reserve.
The known hotspots.
Exactly. Areas already known to host a permanent breeding tiger presence. Specifically, this includes Nutravali and Cacao wildlife sanctuaries, and these are ideal because they have very low habitation. Only 91 households across nearly 300 square kilometers.
That minimizes the need for immediate contentious resettlement. And what about the surrounding areas?
The buffer zone would include areas adjoining the core, like the northern part of the Bagran Mahavir Wildlife Sanctuary. And so what's in sight here for you is twofold. First, declaring a tiger reserve unlocks immense resources, more funding, better protection, anti-poaching squads.
Sure.
Second, the differentiation between core and buffer is key. A core zone is meant to be inviolate, meaning human disturbance is removed, often through voluntary incentivized displacement. A buffer zone, on the other hand, is managed to be tolerant of human activity. The phased approach is designed to strengthen that ecological connectivity rapidly while giving the state time to address community fears.
Next up, we're diving into one of the most significant legislative transformations in India's modern history, the massive overhaul of its labor framework.
It's a monumental shift. The Union Labor Minister announced the impending implementation of 4 new labor codes, which consolidate and repeal 29 previous acts. Some of these were ancient colonial relics.
And these are the 4 codes we've been hearing about for a while: wages, industrial relations, Social Security, and OSHWC.
That's right, the Occupational Safety, Health, and Working Conditions Code. They aim to modernize and simplify what was, frankly, a confusing maze of overlapping laws.
These were passed between 2019 and 2020, so why the prolonged delay in their implementation? What's been the holdup?
The delay really stems from constitutional mechanics. Labor is on the concurrent list, so both the central and state governments have authority. While the center passed the codes and published its draft rules years ago, they can't be fully implemented until the states finalize their own draft rules.
And the states are lagging.
Significantly. We have several laggards. West Bengal and Lakshadweep, notably, have failed to pre-publish draft rules for any of the 4 codes. Delhi has only managed to finalize the wages code rules, so that's been the primary roadblock.
Let's synthesize the government's stated goals here. What is the administration hoping to achieve with this consolidation?
The goals are broad and pretty ambitious. They include promoting the formalization of employment, drastically expanding Social Security coverage, and this is huge, specifically including previously excluded groups like gig and platform workers.
That is a big deal.
It is. They also want to ensure minimum and timely wages, reduce the compliance burden for employers, and make a strong push toward increasing women's workforce participation.
Can you detail some of the specific new features designed to improve worker safety and equality?
Absolutely. One fundamental change is the statutory right to a minimum wage, which didn't explicitly exist for all categories before. That's coupled with setting a national floor wage. For formalization, mandatory appointment letters for all workers are now required.
And on the equality front?
The pay framework is now explicitly gender neutral, prohibiting discrimination, including against transgender persons. And crucially, restrictions on women working night shifts or in roles previously restricted to men have been removed, promoting genuine equal opportunity.
The reception, as you might expect, has been a study in contrasts. How have employer groups responded?
Well, employer organizations have mostly hailed it as a massive positive. The CII praised the codes for simplification, harmonization, modernization, all the buzzwords.
Sure.
Their argument is that this will boost job creation. However, smaller entities like MSMEs are skeptical. They feel that mandatory Social Security contributions will significantly increase their operating costs, and they're asking for a transitional grace period.
Now let's pivot to the opposition, specifically the central trade unions. Their concerns are pretty nuanced.
Yes, the trade unions, excluding the BMS, have major objections. First, they worry that even with a mandatory floor wage, the level set nationally will be insufficient. Second, and maybe most critically, they argue the codes fail to adequately cover the massive 93% of India's workforce that remains in the unorganized sector.
So the coverage expansion isn't deep enough.
That's their argument. They also point to worrying changes in thresholds. For example, the codes increase the number of workers required to mandate a factory license. The unions argue this is designed to deliberately exclude thousands of small enterprises from protections.
And their ability to organize and strike seems to be a major point of contention as well.
That's correct. The unions object to what they term unwarranted restrictions on their functioning. This includes limitations on membership and procedural restrictions that significantly restrict the right to strike. There's also a very technical but crucial objection, the exclusion of house rent allowance from the definition of wages, which could lower the Social Security payouts workers receive.
This next segment requires us to address an issue that sparked widespread fear: the discovery of traces of uranium in the breast milk of lactating mothers in Bihar. The word radioactivity alone is enough to set alarm bells ringing.
It absolutely is, and that initial finding, published in Nature, needs very careful context. The study did indeed find detectable traces of uranium, or U-238, in the breast milk of 40 mothers, with concentrations ranging up to 5.25 micrograms per liter.
And the source was clearly identified as the local water supply, right?
Yes, the source was groundwater contamination. Bihar's geology means some groundwater sources naturally contain elevated levels of uranium, and the specific isotope, U-238, is the most common form of natural uranium. It's just, naturally occurring in rock, soil, and water.
So let's tackle the initial public panic head-on. When people hear uranium, they think of nuclear disaster or cancer. What is the measured scientific response regarding the health risks at these levels?
Reassurance is absolutely paramount here. While uranium is radioactive, U-238 is only weakly radioactive, and external exposure is low risk because the skin acts as an effective barrier against the low-energy alpha particles it emits. The main concern is ingestion, but the levels found need to be benchmarked.
And those benchmarks are key to understanding the scale of the problem.
Exactly. There's currently no official permissible limit for uranium specifically in breast milk. This is new data. However, we can compare it to the WHO's provisional guideline for uranium in drinking water, which is set at 30 micrograms per liter.
Okay.
The study's highest observed concentration was 5.25, so that's significantly lower, less than 1/5 of the safe drinking water limit. This context is essential.
Beyond the concentration, the study also addresses the question of how much uranium an infant would actually retain.
And that's the critical piece of public health insight. The authors concluded that the actual health impact is expected to be minimal. The human body is quite efficient at processing uranium. Most of it is safely excreted, primarily through urine, meaning it is not concentrated significantly in breast milk.
I see.
So while an initial assessment suggested some infants showed potential non-carcinogenic risk, the authors maintain the overall health concern is minimal given the low levels.
But the publication of this study triggered an immediate secondary danger that is far more devastating to public health.
That's the crux of the warning from experts like gastroenterologist Radioactivity. The immediate catastrophic danger is the public misinterpretation of the findings, leading mothers to panic and stop breastfeeding.
Oh, wow.
Insufficient breastfeeding is a major proven cause of infant mortality and malnutrition globally. If this fear leads mothers to abandon it, the negative health consequences would be immediate and severe, dramatically outweighing the minimal theoretical risk from the uranium traces.
So the central public health message is not just don't panic, but an act of reassurance. Breastfeeding remains unequivocally safe and necessary.
The evidence strongly supports that conclusion. The study's value is not in creating fear, but in serving as a necessary call to action for environmental monitoring. The authors rightly call for immediate periodic groundwater checks, larger sample sizes, and comprehensive environmental uranium profiling to ensure contaminants remain safely below critical limits in the future. It's an early warning system, not a crisis declaration.
Transitioning now to the judicial arena, we are profiling Chief Justice of India Surya Kant. His personal narrative is deeply resonant, a journey from a small village in Haryana to the pinnacle of the judiciary.
Yes, and he even took his oath in Hindi, emphasizing his connection to the common citizen. His judicial philosophy is founded on the belief that justice is a profoundly human enterprise. He's very vocal that no machine can replicate the empathy required.
He talks about the smallest litigant in the last row.
Exactly, and advocating for law to cultivate empathy for the invisible victims.
The article notes, though, that his judicial conduct reflects a highly conscious effort to strike a balance, which can sometimes lead to his public oral observations seeming contradictory to his final written orders.
It is a hallmark of his style. His oral observations can be delivered very harshly, sometimes generating significant headlines. But the principle guiding his final written orders, as the article notes, is that justice should be slow and sure.
We see this tension clearly in some high-profile cases. Let's look at the Nupur Sharma case from 2022.
That's the perfect illustration. CJI Kant initially made the widely reported severe remark that she was single-handedly responsible for the violence that erupted. That was the sharp oral observation.
Right.
However, just 18 days later, his bench granted her crucial protection from coercive police action across the multiple FIRs filed against her. The final balanced order protected her from immediate arrest while maintaining the seriousness of the initial comments.
We see a similar pattern in the politically charged Lakhimpur Kheri case involving Ashish Mishra.
Absolutely. Initially, he made a very strong stance, canceling Mishra's bail, which had been granted in a tearing hurry, and stressed the vital need for victims to have participatory rights.
Positioning himself as a defender of the victims.
A staunch defender. Yet, months later, his bench granted Mishra interim bail, recognizing the requirements of law, but simultaneously showed that same balancing principle by granting relief to farmers who are under trials in the related counter-FIR. He ensures the scales are continually checked.
His stance on issues of national security versus government transparency, specifically around the Pegasus surveillance case, also seems to have evolved.
The evolution is noticeable. Back in 2021, he was insistent that the government be transparent about the use of spyware. However, more recently, now poised to take over as CJI in 2025, the focus has shifted slightly.
How so?
Following a recent terror attack, he started directing questions back at the petitioners, asking what was inherently wrong with using such spyware for national security against anti-national elements. This shift reflects the immense pressure of balancing individual rights against state security.
Yet, despite this shift toward recognizing security concerns, he maintains a vital, consistent defense of dissent and free speech.
He does. He's actively questioning whether the potential for abuse in Section 152, which replaced the old sedition law, might render the law itself unconstitutional. And critically, he protected petitioner journalists from arrest, stating very clearly that mere dissent cannot endanger sovereignty. He seems focused on that initial realization he had in his first high court case, that his highest responsibility was protecting the innocent from being lost in the storms of circumstance.
Shifting now into the realm of cutting-edge biology, new research in Nature Medicine has provided surprising depth into the biological changes induced by feminizing gender-affirmative hormone therapy, or GAHT. The effects are far more systemic than we previously assumed.
This study is immensely important for understanding transgender health at a cellular level. The core finding is that GAHT, which is usually estrogen alongside an anti-androgen, causes deep shifts in the profiles of over 5,000 proteins circulating in the blood. They call these vast changes proteomic shifts.
We knew GHT caused visible changes like fat redistribution and breast development. Why is mapping these proteomic shifts so significant?
Because it confirms that the hormone therapy is not just acting on superficial tissue, but is restructuring entire biological systems. The researchers tracked 40 transgender women over 6 months. And proteins are the workhorses of the body. They control immune response, metabolism, you name it.
So seeing shifts in 5,000 of them confirms a profound systemic change.
It's a profound change.
What was the direction of this immense biological change?
The analysis showed a clear pattern. GHT was significantly shifting protein levels toward the profile generally observed in cisgender women. For example, the group taking one type of anti-androgen saw changes in 245 proteins. These shifts were directly attributed to the primary goal of the therapy, decreased testosterone and the resulting physiological changes.
So it validates the feeling of alignment that patients often report.
Exactly, that changes are happening deep inside the body's cells and systems.
Did analyzing these complex biological patterns suggest any potential long-term health implications or new risks?
It raised theoretical possibilities that require close monitoring. The observed protein patterns suggested a potential increased theoretical risk of developing allergic asthma and autoimmune disorders for users of both common anti-androgens.
And these are theoretical at this point.
Purely theoretical based on biological markers, not proven clinical reality, but it's a necessary red flag for future research. Interestingly, one drug was associated with protein shifts, suggesting a lower risk of atherosclerosis.
It's crucial we emphasize that these are based on biological markers, not clinically observed realities.
Absolutely. Clinicians like Dr. Kalra and Dr. Chung are quick to stress this caveat. They have not yet observed this increased susceptibility in their clinical practice. The finding simply highlights gaps in our knowledge. It confirms the critical need for high-quality, inclusive, longitudinal studies to determine if these biological patterns actually translate into real-world health effects.
And this is especially vital in places like India.
Yes, where access to care and continuous medical monitoring for GHT are often inconsistent. The findings demand better, more structured healthcare and research funding for this population.
Switching gears dramatically from biology to global trade, we turn to the strategic rebirth of Indian merchant shipping. The State-Owned Shipping Corporation of India, SCI, is now planning a massive, ambitious reversal, buying over 200 merchant ships.
This truly is a monumental turning point, and it reflects a major geopolitical wake-up call. SCI was once a mini Ratna, a source of national pride, one of the biggest global ship owners with over 120 ships.
But the seeds of its downfall were sown decades ago with liberalization.
They were. Its decay began in the 1990s with global trade agreements like GATS. This eroded SCI's strategic privileges. Crucially, SCI lost its first rights to carry India's oil and essential cargo. This allowed foreign fleets to dominate.
And the consequence was severe.
Extremely. SCI's fleet halved, and the average age of its remaining ships is now 18 years, dangerously close to the 20-year scrapping age. Nationally, India's share of its own export-import cargo carried by Indian ships plummeted from a respectable 27% down to a mere 7%.
That's a staggering dependency on foreign carriers. What was the specific event that triggered the strategic reversal?
The pandemic. It provided the undeniable geopolitical wake-up call. When global shipping fractured during COVID-19, freight rates skyrocketed. We saw container ships skipping third-world ports entirely. This severely impacted India's high-volume, low-margin exports like shrimp and rice.
It exposed a major vulnerability.
A huge one. It showed India's lack of national control over its essential trade routes. When you don't control the vessels, you are entirely reliant on the strategic choices of other nations.
And this movement reflects a global shift away from that pure free trade ethos.
Exactly. The pure free trade regime is out of vogue, replaced by state-driven initiatives focused on securing national economic resilience. We see the U.S. subsidizing semiconductors, countries raising tariff walls. India is now aligning with this global trend.
So how will SCI finance this massive expansion? 200 ships is a monumental capital expenditure.
The new strategy is brilliant because it provides financial certainty. It involves allocating thousands of crores from the Maritime Development Fund to SCI joint ventures with key PSU stakeholders. Think oil majors and the Container Corporation of India.
So they become long-term strategic partners.
And financial backers. It ensures guaranteed cargo volume and the ability to raise the necessary capital for massive new ship purchases.
That structure guarantees both the financing and the future utilization of the fleet. What are the major challenges facing this expansion right now?
The biggest practical hurdle is timing. Ship prices globally are currently at record high levels due to the post-pandemic bull run, so the buildup will have to be gradual. There is also a crucial caveat from the Indian National Ship Owners Association. While they support the move, they argue that these critical measures to raise cargo capacity and financial backing should be extended to private Indian players as well, not exclusively limited to state-owned entities.
Now we transition into the dynamic world of culture and commerce, specifically focusing on the future of the Indian gaming industry. We start by acknowledging the global standard set by events like Gamescom, where hundreds of thousands gather for AAA games.
And India clearly has the raw talent, but for years its potential was choked by a specific toxic phenomenon.
You're referring to real money gaming, or RMG.
Yes, which was essentially gambling disguised as casual games. For nearly a decade, RMG just cannibalized the creative ecosystem. It was the easy money dominating the funding landscape, commanding a massive 80% of all gaming VC funding.
Starving studios that were trying to create original IP.
Exactly, and it siphoned off the best engineering and coding talent into developing high-speed betting apps rather than narrative-driven games.
RMG created regulatory chaos and addiction issues, which finally prompted the government to step in.
It did. The Promotion and Regulation of Online Gaming Act 2025, which has been enforced for about 3 months, is the massive reset the industry needed. By effectively banning online casinos, it has provided the stable regulatory environment needed to finally build a genuine developer-driven industry.
What does the market look like demographically, now that the focus is shifting to creative IP?
India is a colossal gaming market. We're currently home to 591 million gamers, and that's projected to reach 900 million by 2029. And crucially, the gamer profile is changing fast. 44% of that base are women, driving growth across diverse genres.
However, the average Indian gamer is incredibly value-conscious and demands quality that rivals global AAA titles. What is the current critique of homegrown indie creations?
The bar is extremely high, and the criticism on platforms like Reddit can be harsh. Homegrown indie games are often criticized for lacking gameplay depth or feeling bland compared to international standards. The obstacle used to be fragmentation and high cost, but that's changing with democratized tools like Unreal and Unity.
To combat fragmentation, the industry has now unified.
Precisely. The newly formed Indian Game Publishers and Developers Association, IGPDA, which includes major players like Nazara and Reliance, is vital. Their mandate is to unify the scattered developers, promote and protect original IP creation, and push for standardization.
The ultimate challenge for India, the one that will truly define its global gaming presence, is what's called the world-building imperative.
That's the high bar. The question everyone asks is, when will India get its own breakout hit, like China's Black Myth Wukong? That game was a global sensation because it skillfully blended a core Chinese civilizational narrative journey to the West with cutting-edge graphics and pulse-pounding gameplay.
And India possesses this unbelievable treasure chest for storytellers.
Absolutely. We have the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, hundreds of rich regional folk traditions filled with complex characters and big philosophical ideas.
So the goal is to translate that narrative wealth into compelling, interactive set pieces and tight gameplay loops, much like The Witcher or God of War. What kind of ecosystem support is being rallied behind this goal?
State governments are stepping in with serious infrastructure and financial backing. Maharashtra has committed a massive 3,000 crore gaming war chest to attract companies, build accelerators, and establish specialized AVGC hubs.
AVGC being animation, visual effects, gaming, and comics.
Exactly, with XR, or extended reality, often included now.
And Tamil Nadu is right alongside them.
Yes, Tamil Nadu is finalizing its nuanced AVGC XR policy. It's built on 4 pillars: education, infrastructure, ease of business, and financial incentives. They are specifically aiming to attract major international studios with the ambition of bringing in companies like Nintendo.
Finally, every thriving creative industry needs a central meeting point, a place for deal-making and fan engagement.
And that's the role of Gaming Bharat. It serves as the industry's megaphone, uniting the community, providing a crucial B2B nexus for investment, enabling the debut of new games, and crucially, fueling the emerging merch economy that supports artists, writers, and cosplayers.
Our final deep dive for today takes us into the bean-to-bar cacao revolution happening across India, a story of agricultural resilience and sophisticated entrepreneurship.
It's a wonderful history that shows how agricultural policy and quality are so intrinsically linked. The story starts with 65-year-old cacao trees at Varnashi Organic Farms in Dakshina, Canada. Initially, the farm's 50 tons of cacao were sold wholesale to the major buyer in India, Cadbury.
But that relationship turned sour in the mid-'80s, providing the catalyst for the entire movement.
Exactly. Cadbury lowballed the farmers on the prices. So in a pioneering act of self-reliance, the farmers co-founded a cooperative, CAMPCO, and CAMPCO subsequently started its own chocolate factory in Putur, which became the biggest in South Asia at the time.
It created market competition.
And planted the seed for self-determination. Now, decades later, we are seeing the true blossoming of this with the emergence of about 20 bean-to-bar craft chocolate makers in just the last few years.
So what exactly defines this craft or bean-to-bar difference that sets them apart from large commercial chocolate?
It's the meticulous attention to detail at every single stage. Makers like Ataki Churi stress that craft chocolate is defined by the maker manipulating crucial parameters, like precise fermentation time, specific drying methods, and exact roasting temperature to achieve a desired, complex flavor profile.
Something the big brands just can't do at scale.
They ignore it for volume. When you control the entire process from the bean to the bar, you can develop sophisticated, unique tasting notes.
Historically, India accounts for only about 1% of global cacao production, and the quality has sometimes suffered from a reputation for inferiority. How is the craft movement addressing that?
They are tackling it through dual efforts: better farmer training and adapting agricultural practices, but the focus is shifting from simply the growing process to the post-harvest process. Chocolatier Sainer of the Una brand argues that while terroir plays a role, the paramount determinant of taste quality is the human intervention during processing.
So it's less about the soil and more about the technique.
Yes. Nair insists it is specifically the interventions of the farmer during the processing, mindful fermentation, meticulous drying, careful roasting, that define the final taste profile and help eliminate undesirable qualities, like the astringency that previously plagued Indian beans.
And this commitment to quality has translated into a staggering economic incentive for the farmers who make the effort.
Dramatically so. This is the most profound part. 5 years ago, wholesale cacao might fetch around 200 pos per kilo. Today, craft-grade beans, those handled with meticulous care and sold directly to chocolatiers, can fetch anywhere from 1,000 up to 1,500 per kilo.
Wow, that's a huge increase.
It's a powerful force, driving farmers who had previously cut down their cacao trees to return enthusiastically to growing the crop.
It sounds like a complete self-sustaining ecosystem is forming, driven by knowledge sharing and accessible equipment.
It is. Experts are anticipating incredibly exciting growth in this sector over the next 5 years. The key takeaway is that this revolution isn't just about making better chocolate. It's about restoring economic dignity and proving that Indian agricultural products, through dedication to craft, can set global benchmarks for quality.
Thank you for listening. If you want to provide suggestions, please contact on the Twitter handle given in the episode description. As always, we are eager to hear what our listeners want to be informed about. We wish you a great day.